Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Emily Anderson with FranNet, and I'm here with Wendy. Hey, Wendy.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for giving me this opportunity today.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And for those of you listening, Wendy and I were just chatting for the last few minutes here with it's really interesting times to talk about financing, and we're talking about financing during a quarantine, and we've got dogs barking in the background. And Wendy, I gotta say though, that is one of the things that I love about entrepreneurship. It's just raw life.
It is, and it's so flexible. It accommodates for everybody.
Yeah. It's like, you're a professional and you're working from home and dogs are barking in the background. I mean, how real does it get? So anyway, I digress. People listening, it's like, woman, what are you talking about? What we're really going to talk about here is
Makes it interesting.
yeah. How to finance a business or a franchise. And the financing landscape is changing so much. And I'm so excited, Wendy, that you're here to tell us the latest and greatest. So, real quick, I'm with an organization called FranNet. We've been around for over 30 years. We've got great partnerships with two different arms of the Small Business Administration, which is SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. It's a volunteer-based organization, and the Small Business Development Center, which both of these organizations provide free business advising to aspiring and existing business owners. And Wendy, if you could jump to the next one, just high level before we jump into the nitty gritty on financing is FranNet takes a very educational and consultative approach. And what we do is we help people determine, one, if business ownership makes sense for you, and two, what businesses might fit you best. All of our resources that here at FranNet, as FranNet Associates, our services are free, and such an important part of determining the how, why, when, and if a business makes sense for you is to determine your investment level and a realistic and responsible financing strategy. So, Wendy, I'm going to turn it over you to talk to us about this.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, Emily, again. Love the relationship that Benetrends has with FranNet. Couldn't be happier to work with you guys. The success rate that you have compared to other organizations is just incredible. And the long-standing, knowing your markets locally, it's just a tremendous organization. So Benetrends is honored to be a part of it. What I'm going to talk about today is how do we finance that wonderful opportunity that Emily's going to find for you. I want to go over, and I know time is of the essence. It's just a very high-level view of the different funding programs, how they relate to COVID-19, the big elephant in the room every day today. So we'll go through what is a rollover, what's happening with SBA loans. I'll mention some other options to help with some adjacent funding needs you might have. Why come to Benetrends? What does it take to get pre-qualified? And then, of course, if there's any questions and answers at the end of the webinar, anything I can do to help. And with respect to time, we'll get through those. This is going to be recorded, so if you want to get a copy of it following our call, just let us know. And what I'll get right into is who Benetrends is and who I am, and then we'll talk about SBA loans, which everybody's interested in hearing about, I'm sure. My name, again, Wendy Skemmer. I'm a senior consultant at Benetrends. Benetrends has been around since 1983, helping folks get financing. But most exciting program we have here is the ability for you to use your retirement funds without tax or penalty. And that's when we get real excited. So most folks, when they think about purchasing a business, the first thing we think about is getting a small business loan. And I know on the news every day, several times a day right now, we're hearing about the SBA and what's happening with relief efforts. What I'm going to be talking about today is for new business ownership. Yes, we have resources for those who are already in business, who need some assistance. We actually have a link on our website, and there's help there for you. But there's also exciting news in the world of opening up a new business, and that obviously we see the government does support small businesses, sees the need for our nation to succeed with small business ownership, and so this program is robust. The typical SBA loan is called and referred to as a 7A loan. Note that it can be for existing businesses also if you're buying a resale. A lot of folks don't realize that small business loans in the SBA program actually go up to $5 million. They start usually at $25,000. There's special fast track programs that we'll talk about. Again, I go through this information pretty quickly, so a one-on-one consultation most likely makes sense following the webinar when time permits. But just to give you an idea, SBA rates are 2 3/4 above prime, puts us right now at 6% is the highest the lender can get you. I've seen some term sheets come in sub 6%. In budgeting and forecasting, I would assume just between 5.5%, 6% interest in today's environment. You do need to have skin in the game. You have to have non-borrowed funds that you can put down, just like we invest in our homes. The lenders want you to also invest in your business. 10 to 30% is where the lenders are. I usually tell folks, plan that you're going to have to be at 20%. I think it's smart planning. Common other requirements, credit score of a 680 or better, without a foreclosure, short sale, or bankruptcy in the last 10 years. If there's concern with credit, we have great resources outside of Benetrends to help you with that credit repair. Something we'll talk about a lot when we're talking about small business loans is post-closing liquidity. What that means is when you close that loan, the bank, we at Benetrends want to see that you have enough working capital in the business and you also have enough personally. You might have a runway before you start making profits. We will help you put together a strong SBA package. The requirements will eventually be to have 3 years tax returns, have a proven business plan that Benetrends does not do for you, but certainly supports you and provides you with a template and definitely goes through it with you. But these are basically the requirements that you'll need at the point of getting in front of a lender. Why come to Benetrends for a loan? Well, it's very much like matchmaking. Just like if you went to go find your own business without Emily, there's so many choices. How do you know where to go? How do you know as a point of comparison what might be a match for you? And also, I know a lot of folks come to Emily and they have no idea what business opportunity they're going to end up with. Maybe they thought they'd end up in food and beverage. And after working with Emily, they realized there was an array of, I should say, a plethora of other options for you to choose from. Same with funding. If you come to Benetrends, we can help you hone in on that right bank, like Emily's going to help you hone in that right opportunity. Banks have different credit boxes. We always say they have different flavors. For example, there's some big banks that really do not want to do food and beverage. They don't want it in their portfolio, or they allocate a very small amount of funds for it. Well, because of our banking relationships, we know which banks are what flavors, and within that thought process, what banks have filled those buckets, so to say. So if you have like a Wells Fargo, and we know they're going to allocate less than 10% of their finances for SBA to food and beverage, and we know that they're at 9.8%, we're certainly not going to shop your loan at Wells Fargo. Some of the challenges you face in business ownership with an SBA loan are also things that Benetrends will help you walk through. We spoke about post-closing liquidity. One thing that a lot of folks are kind of confused about in the beginning is, what's the process? Do I sign the franchise agreement? Do I get the SBA loan? What if it's a brick and mortar? Do I sign the lease? We have years and years of experience of going through this process, and we help you with that. I know a lot of folks have transitioned out of their jobs, in some cases to no choice of your own, and know that there are banks that are lending to folks who are unemployed. As long as you have all the other checks, boxes checked, so to say, leaving a job is not a definite no in getting a small business loan. And one of the biggest complaints I hear about folks who have gone directly to a lender is that the communication and the expectations were not where they had hoped they would be. They were used to the constant communication through Benetrends through the beginning of the process, but then when they got to the lender did not continue with that same expectation and the same communication level. Well, we step in, we make sure that the bank is getting the communication to you and also that realistic expectations are met. What's exciting about Benetrends is we do a free pre-qualification, very much like when you go get pre-qualified for a mortgage, except I don't even run your credit because I don't want to start putting inquiries on your credit. We want to keep it strong and help you be the best you can be. So we ask you to run that credit report for us. And the goal, just like in real estate, your real estate agent wants to come back to you with many offers. Our goal is to create a bidding war, to come back to you and say, okay, here's 3 or 4 offers. Depending on the climate and the business and the size loan will determine how many lenders make sense and how many lenders are out there. But we definitely want to create a situation where you have options, and then we help you work through making the right choice with the lender, and then of course getting through the closing of that loan. Now, one of the most exciting programs in the world of business financing, hands down, is the rollover for business startup. I have the privilege of working at Benetrends, who's owned by the ERISA tax attorney, Leonard Fisher, who pioneered this program in 1983. And I don't just say that lightly. He is a differentiator, a legend, and to be able to help folks make these decisions and have options that I never even knew existed when I started my career is just, it's overwhelming. So let me share this awesome opportunity with you. If you have retirement funds, 401k from a previous employer, we'll talk about some of the funds that are eligible, but basically most qualified retirement funds that are not tied to your current employer, not a Roth IRA, most of those funds are going to be qualified and eligible for this program. The reason why it's so exciting is because a lot of folks always are under the impression that we cannot touch our retirement funds until we're 59 and a half. And when we are 59 and a half, what happens? We pull out that 401k money, and it's kind of like the game Mousetrap. The government comes right down on you and says, okay, now I need my taxes. But what if you could use that money without having to pay the government taxes? It sounds too good to be true. But let's walk through an example. This is a client that I had. They left their job. They had $200,000 in their old 401k, okay? 53 years old. So if they pull that money out, what happens? 10% penalty, and they just left their corporate job. So they're easily at a 30% tax rate. So when all is said and done, here's a couple that was so excited. They had the opportunity to buy a business, trying to be optimistic. They don't want to get back into the corporate rat race. They're 54, so they can't pull it out without penalty. And even if they were 59 and a half, they'd get hit with that nice tax. So what happens in this example is they had $200,000 to start their entrepreneurial dream. Now they have 120. That could be the difference of getting the brand they really wanted, or maybe propelling them into multi-unit ownership. So definitely leaving a lot of money on the table. Never want anybody to have to do that. And so when we talk about a rollover, most of us don't realize that we've done a rollover before. So if you've left your employer and gone to another employer, a lot of us would take our 401k with us and roll it tax deferred, penalty free into the new company's plan. So most of us have done that. I know back in the day when these companies were really cool, I worked for the Gap, I left the Gap, I took my 401k with me, and I rolled it into my new plan at Electronic Arts, their 401k. And then of course, I wanted to invest in Electronic Arts because I was excited about my new company. I didn't really think about it, but the proceeds of that stock purchase went right to Electronic Arts. So what you think about in the past when you've taken your 401k even into a rollover IRA, you've done a rollover before. So that's the premise for how does this work. So let's go back to my example of my lovely couple in Idaho with $200,000 from his previous employer's 401k. So he severed his W-2 relationship so that those funds are available to him. We're going to set up his corporate entity. When you utilize your retirement funds in this way, you have to be a C corporation. And in today's environment, that's a good thing. The C corporation can very much be your friend. What we're going to do is we're going to customize here at Benetrends. We're a full service retirement planning company. So it's not a cookie cutter 401k. It's a customized qualified retirement plan. So in step one, you're a C corporation, you're the CEO, you're the board of directors, and you are sponsoring a qualified retirement plan. You're also an employee of your C corporation. So that leads you to the ability to do what you could do in step two. You can now participate in the qualified retirement plan. So you can take that $200,000 and roll it into the new company's plan. Then you're going to purchase the non-publicly traded stock in your newly formed corporation. Now you're not publicly traded, you're privately held, you hold all the voting rights, but you can buy stock in your company. You can make an equity investment with your retirement funds. And this leads to your company being capitalized. Once that money is in the bank, It's an asset of the C corporation. So in this example, that couple that had $200,000, they pull it out, they'd only have 120. They just did our program. Now they have the full $200,000. They can go back to Emily and say, okay, now we can do that multi-unit opportunity, or now we can move forward with the franchise we really wanted. The benefits of using 401k funds. The ability to ever use pre-tax money is a benefit. Most of us can never touch that money until we're 59 and a half. And of course, at that point, we're going to have to pay taxes. So the ability to grow that money and use it to invest in a business without having to pay tax on it is like the government almost subsidizing your business. Now, a lot of folks will utilize their retirement funds and an SBA loan or another form of financing. So I literally had a call this morning. She's rolling over half her project cost, and then she's actually taking a loan against her other investments for the other part of the project. It's allowing her to become a multi-unit owner day one to secure that ownership, which is a very exciting thing for her. It also, when you look at, if you're looking at your cash flow statement and you're thinking, okay, I'll get a small business loan for 80% to value of the project, look at your cash flow statement and then pull out your debt service or reduce your debt service because you now have the ability to also inject some retirement funds. Boy, it makes a big difference on when you're cash flow positive. So of course, getting into a business in an equity position, a lot of us are stuck home right now watching Shark Tank reruns and the profit. You'll always hear them talk about equity in the business. Anytime you can put yourself in a position where you have equity in your business, you're ahead of the game, as well as asset protection. A lot of folks are talking about this in today's environment. When you're a C corporation, you're its own entity, files its own tax return. Therefore, it's protected. It's owned by your retirement plan in that last example. So moving on, the path to success that we use more often than not is the combination of the rollover and the SBA. It does allow you the flexibility of having the ability of rolling over more money later if you need additional working capital. And again, as I mentioned, the lenders do look at those funds as the non-borrowed funds that they are. Now, some folks turn around and say, boy, you know what? I heard that the franchise is offering me a discount if I do multi-unit. How does that work with my combination funding? When you look at an SBA loan, depending on your business, if it's brick and mortar, that lender's going to look at your first project only. The combination of the rollover and the SBA allows you to use those rollover funds to commit to number 2, number 3, or maybe more, and still get that SBA loan for the first unit. So it's really nice that you're able to utilize those retirement funds to secure those future territories. And a lot of times, those are great discounts. Now, I'd be remiss to go through a webinar and not mention the Rainmaker Advantage program. This is a new program that Benetrends rolled out 2 years ago. And what this program is focused on is what I want to highlight today, because it is very detailed, does require a follow-up call, most likely a share screen presentation for me to go through with you. But this is for somebody who's saying, you know what, I have some retirement funds, but I'm going to buy the business in cash or cash in a small business loan. But boy, am I concerned about when I sell the business and how much I'm going to spend in capital gains tax. So we always say here at Benetrends, if we had to have a mission or a motto, it would be, it's not how much money you make, because you're getting in that business to make a lot of money. Emily's going to help you find that right opportunity, right? You're going to work hard to make that happen, but it's how much money you keep. Because if you made $1 million on the sale of your business, but you paid taxes, really, we want to figure out how to reduce that so you get that $1 million in your pocket. I'm going to walk through a really quick example, absolutely worth discussing further in the future. This is an example of a client who's buying a $300,000 business, and I just want to give you an idea of how powerful this program is. This client is a very smart client, right? They're thinking, I'm getting into this business, it's going to be wonderful, but boy, my goal is to build wealth and to mitigate taxes. And I don't really want to utilize a great amount of my retirement funds. If you needed to use retirement funds, we could use a similar philosophy for the ROBS program and a Roth conversion. So there's definitely options there of absolutely to minimize tax. This takes it a step even further. So let's say this client's buying a $300,000 business and they have $275,000 in cash. Now, if they were getting a loan, this still works. okay? But they have a couple $1,000 or tens of thousands of dollars in retirement, excuse me, that they're willing to roll over. So we do the ROBs. Very similar, we do the same exact thing in the rollover, but they're only going to roll over about $30,000 in this example, 10% of the project cost. And what they're going to do is they're going to convert it to a Roth 401k, okay? So now they've paid the taxes on the 401k, we've converted it to a Roth 401k, and I'm going to issue them common stock, just like in the ROBs example we went through, for their investment. They're going to get an equity investment through their retirement for $25,000. Here's the magic. For the $275,000 that they're investing in cash, they're going to get preferred stock. Preferred stock redeemable at par value, basically redeemable at purchase price. So the lights are going off, I know they are. What happens when we sell the business for $1 million? Well, we get our $275,000 back. I have to mention that there is a cumulative dividend of 5%. So most folks will wait and pay the dividend there. So that's the one taxable event. But the remaining $725,000 due to the sale in the Rainmaker Advantage plan is not subject to tax. So what happens is they roll that money into a into a Roth IRA. As long as you leave it there for 5 years. Remember, this is somebody whose goal is creating wealth for themselves, mitigating taxation. This isn't someone that wants to sell the business and have the money in their pocket and be taxed right away. They end up on that 725. They leave that for 5 years in their Roth IRA. When they're 59 and a half and they pull that out, they now have a profit of $700,000 on the sale of that business, 100% tax-free. Not to mention, they've appreciated on that money as well. They've made money on that money in a post-tax account. I have my MBA in accounting, so I do feel like a numbers kind of nerd, but this is exciting. Anybody who thinks that paying tax on $700,000 profit is fun, right, isn't moving into a business ownership. So it's a wonderful way to plan for future wealth. Here's an example. I'm not going to bore you guys with the details, but just showing you. In this example, this is someone that isn't as liquid as that previous client. This person's only putting in a net of $10,000 in their retirement and investing $80,000 cash. They're going to get a loan for $210,000. This is probably a more common situation. Not everybody has $300,000 to buy a business. I know I'm going through it quickly, but I just want you to see the impact. So this is somebody who sold the business. When they sold the business for $1 million, they put the money in their IRA, and the same thing, 59 and a half when they pulled it out, $910,000 tax-free. Now, of course, the taxable event is that cumulative dividend, but boy, that's a huge savings. So, I mean, when you're buying a business and you have the opportunity to really plan for that future sale of the business, and some franchises are going to have that kind of appreciation, very smart play, great program, would love the opportunity to speak with you about it further. Also, though, on the ROBS program, the goal is always going to be to protect the amount of money you make. Again, we know you make and you keep, excuse me. We know your goal is to make a lot of money. We're going to help you keep that money. Other programs that are worth mentioning, a portfolio loan. This is extremely popular right now. A lot of folks call it a security-backed line of credit, SBLOC. Most of the folks that have investments outside of retirement funds, so this isn't your 401k, this is all post-tax dollar investment. Most of the institutions or custodians that hold that money will offer this program. I do have a company that'll do it for you, but you'd have to move your securities to this company. We all know of home equity. We can do a home equity line of credit. We can collateralize our house, still live in our house, and borrow money against it. With the portfolio loan, you're replacing the asset. So it's not your house, it's your post-tax portfolio. So I had an example of a client who actually had $200,000 in HP stock. They're able to use 80% of that value. Again, he doesn't have to move his securities, he still gets his dividend, and he can borrow against that, usually sub 4%. And it's not borrowed money because it's collateralized with your with your portfolio, you can also use that to secure your SBA loan. Not everybody has an old 401k or rollover IRA. This gives you another option if you have investments outside of retirement. Or some folks will use this in combination with the rollover and not get a loan at all. Then there's also the participation loan. Now, a lot of us are familiar with this. We've had 401ks in our corporate jobs and we've borrowed 50% up to 50,000, paid ourselves back. You can still do that for your injection in SBA if you still are keeping your job. But also, when you do the rollover with Benetrends, the rollover, the Rainmaker Advantage, either program, you'll have access to this as well. So while we're bridging the gap between leaving our job and starting our business and getting it up and running, a lot of folks like the flexibility of the ability to roll over some extra money that they're not going to invest in their company stock and borrow it, maybe pay off some high interest debt. I had somebody who was doing it for their son's college fund because she actually lost her job and was worried about it. So there's a lot of ways with that participation loan for us to utilize your retirement funds to really help you in the current environment. Any questions and answers, Emily? Did any questions come through the chat box?
No, Wendy, actually no questions, but I actually have something. I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is something that I have come across over the years, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I would say at least half of my clients end up doing the ROBs, the 401k rollover.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to guess, I don't want to exaggerate. So I would honestly say, of those that work with the financial planner and they mention it to their financial planner, 9 out of 10 times their financial planner has never heard of it. Even though this is something we've been doing since the 70s, they've never heard of it. And they're adamantly against it. And I'm like, why doesn't that surprise me? Because that keeps happening. I'd be curious if you've come across that or if you have any insights on why that might be.
Absolutely. So one is I always recommend the client have the financial advisor get on a call with me following our initial consultation. Sometimes it's education. Same with CPAs. Yeah. There's a plethora of CPAs that are very familiar with the ROBS program that work with a lot of my clients, but I have just as many clients that are working with CPAs that aren't familiar with the ROBS. And you know, to your point, it's been around a long time, but if you've never really been involved in franchise financing, like when I was in corporate finance, I didn't know about it, and you know, a lot of folks don't. So part of it's education, but let's also say the reason why they're against it. Sometimes I have a lot of financial advisors, just as many that think it's wonderful. But because if you pull money out of their portfolio, out of the market, what happens? They don't make money on that money, right? You're pulling that money out and you're investing in privately held stock. Fidelity, we've been working with for 29 years. Charles Schwab for a very long time. They see the upside because they also realize that now this client, even though they're going to lose money in the beginning maybe, or there's an opportunity cost of them taking that money out, they're going to start making contributions. And with those contributions, they're going to invest back in the market, which brings a lot of revenue to these financial advisors. So one way we navigate through that is educating the financial advisor that, listen, you can custodian their account. So when they're ready to make contributions, you can be the custodian and they'll have the ability in a profit sharing plan to put a significant amount of money back into that retirement plan. Think about that person who just sold their business, that $1 million is going back into their retirement plan. So one is getting them to see the long-term goal, that if for short-term maybe pain, there's going to be a lot of long-term benefit for their client and potentially for them. So again, it's education. If they haven't been exposed to folks who are doing franchise financing or small business financing, they might not have come across it. And then lastly, that you can explain to them, listen, you don't have to lose this business. Even if they wanted to move over to, let's say, Fidelity or Charles Schwab, who do this program day in, day out, when they're ready to make contributions, they can go back. Changing a custodian is a piece of cake. So it's really important to highlight that the future potential of making money on their investments is going to be far greater than the loss now.
Excellent. That makes perfect sense. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Well, for anyone that is listening, if you would like to get in contact with Wendy, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to reach out to myself. Wendy, I think we have something with our contact information. I think we might next. Feel free
We
to reach
sure
out
do.
look at that, there we are. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Here's our direct contact information. We are here to help you navigate the waters of entrepreneurship as it relates to financing, as it relates to identifying the best business options for you. So feel free to use us as a resource. And Wendy, just fantastic job. Thank you so much for providing such a clear overview of some really complex information. Really appreciate your time and insight today.
Thank you so much, Emily. We know you're a rock star in the industry, so look forward to what the future holds for us and all these folks buying small businesses. It's a lot of exciting things are going to be happening.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And everybody stay well, be well. Best of luck on your entrepreneurial journey. Take care.